All right, so we're in downtown Hamilton today. This is known as a somewhat rougher area, or it used to be, but things are changing very quickly right now. Like we've seen huge changes in this area. As you can see, there's some major builds happening here, and we'll show you some more stuff on the street as well. There's a lot of changes and development that's ongoing, and that's super important right now considering the current economy and the lack of housing. So the city's really stepped it up. We've seen a lot of development happen in this area, and the numbers really do work. A lot of people ignore this area of Hamilton for this sort of stuff, but there's a reason why there's so many developers coming here. You're seeing condo projects going up because the city's open for business here. From what I've seen, they're giving out a lot of approvals, and you're doing multi-unit conversions where the numbers actually work. We have a lot of incentives now with financing and a lot of other things that we'll get into. But yeah, as you can see right now, this is Barton Street. So this is very close to the Hamilton General Hospital. I actually have an off-market listing here. This is one of my clients' properties. This is a potential redevelopment. As you can see, the building next to it is a 3-story. This is currently a 2-story with an addition, and it also has that small house at the back, and it's on a corner lot, which is huge. I'm with Henry. He's the zoning specialist. He does a lot of these projects in the city with some investors I know. I've seen some of the things he's been working on. He knows everything about this stuff. So, Henry, have you been seeing like a lot of this stuff happening in the city right now? Like, what does it look like? Is the city kind of like being friendly towards these?
So I would say in my couple years of experience in Hamilton, they've been really friendly about the mixed-use conversions, right? We've had at times where we've done like triplex, fourplex conversions this past year, and we're struggling more on that than any of the mixed-use conversions. And it's just because these buildings were always built to have, that level of density already. So that, from the city's point of view, it's a lot easier.
So you're seeing are you seeing more and more investors kind of take on these projects too, like where they're doing like not your typical triplex, fourplex, they're doing like more than 5 units, like up to like 10, 20 units?
Yeah, so every time my investors are looking for buildings, they contact me, we do a site visit, we try, see what we can do with that property in terms of size and location, right? So how we're trying to look into it, trying to maximize the number of units. Now, in some areas in Hamilton, there's a cap. Obviously the 4-unit conversion, there's caps in different areas. For these multi-unit conversions, there's really no cap.
Especially with this, I guess, zoning here, right? Because here we have like C5A zoning on this road. I know there's a couple other zones too where you can do more, but what are like some of the things that you can do with, I guess, like the downtown areas, like the zones here? Like what are some things you've seen on like, let's say, similar lots to this one?
Yeah, so what I've seen most of the time that we're trying to maximize the units on the ground floor, second floor, try and maximize it by like 1-bedroom units, right? Now, the most difficult part in these types of situations is that a lot of times my investors are looking for like the corner lots, but sometimes we have the middle lots, similar to what we have in those sections over there.
Yeah.
With those properties, like, 2-story, commercial, then residential, we want to maximize that. We can't because we're limited on the number of windows in that area.
I see.
Right? Maybe on numbers, it's 10,000 square feet. We can add 10, 12 different units, but because there's no windows, we can't physically do that, even though zoning permits it.
So I guess like when you have like more accessibility, it's kind of like the smaller ones where you can get your separate entrances if needed. You can get your windows. You can get I guess just generally accessible, because I would imagine there's a lot of tools, construction, machinery, etc. that has to kind of go around where you're like creating, especially like more than 5 units, right? So yeah, like this deal, for example, right now, like I know currently we have 3 commercial units. We'll cross the street and kind of take a deeper look at it, but we have residential on the upper level. There's also that small house. So altogether right now there's 5 units. I know my clients, like they've been looking at doing a potential redevelopment, applying for site plan to get approvals for maybe like even a 4 or 5-story, because in this area you'll notice, like I said, that one's like a 5-6-story building. The neighbor actually next door, we can see, is a 3-story, and then we have another building in that direction that's a 4-story. So they're all on the same zone. And Henry, correct me if I'm wrong, like if you're having like other buildings on the same street with the same zoning, that kind of sets a precedence, right? At least from what I know. Like how much does that help?
No, it definitely helps a lot. You never want to be the first person doing the biggest project on that street. I can tell you from personal experience, we're doing something similar in St. Catharines, a massive development, and we're the first ones on that street, and the city's giving us the biggest hard time. It's never easy because you are technically, you're the first person. But once somebody else does it, and you want to do it the week after, it's going to be a lot easier because somebody already did all the groundwork for you.
Got it. So have you been seeing like a lot of these specifically in like this part of Hamilton? Because I know there's more of these in these zones where we have like the TOC zones, the C5, C5A, that sort of stuff. So have you been seeing a lot of those recently? Because I know a lot of the investors I've been working with or that I'm familiar with that are my friends, they're looking to get into these bigger deals just because when you go bigger and you do bigger units, the numbers are just generally better. So have you seen a lot of people getting into these larger conversions now as opposed to before?
I'm seeing from my investors that they've tried the duplex, triplex, fourplex. They've done the work for it. They ran the numbers and it doesn't seem to work out well. Versus if they got right into the apartment buildings, these massive shells that are trying to add more units, the numbers make a lot better sense.
Wow.
Right? So they are looking for these types of buildings now after they tried the whole triplex, fourplex. If you would think triplex and fourplex wouldn't be as hard, but once you start adding all the factors of the building code requirements, it's like more of a pain in the ass. Versus if you've done something like this, it was already built to hold up that much.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to work with.
Got it. So I guess like we'll take a look at the unit here. So on a lot like this, right, for example's sake, what would you recommend doing based on what you're seeing, like with the neighbor having a similar sized lot, having 4 stories, getting some approvals on the main floor? Like, what would you propose on something like this?
Yeah, this is where I always ask my investors, like, what level of risk do you want to be in, right? If you want to do the additional story similar to the neighbors, is that within your budget? Are you able to raise that much capital to get to that level? Or do you want to be conservative and stay within the building shell, which is a lot easier and a lot quicker to do to get your money in and out? So it depends on their strategy at that point. But if you want to stick to the second story or the third story in this case, that's what I would personally go with. So there's going to be a little bit more time and money, but the rate of return, if you can add in 5 more units, it's well worth it.
Yeah, like we were running the numbers on stuff like this, and as soon as you start getting into that 10, 20 unit range, you can basically build. And especially with the current financing, like for people that are not familiar, there's government programs like CMHC, MLI Select programs where if you have more than 70% residential, if you're doing anything with more than 5 units, these guys will give you up to 90, 95% loan to value, right? So when we were running the numbers on something like this, you could build this up, go up to even 20 units maybe with like 5, 6 stories if you can get that. From what we saw, there was no other buildings have no parking, so there's a possibility we might not need it, so we can maybe do more units, whatever it is. But we're basically able to finish the project, and if we do our refinance through CMHC, you can essentially pull out all your capital.
100%. And with the MLI Select program, we have to be able to meet that 100-point requirements. And most of the time, our investors are going with the energy efficiency route. The accessibility and affordability isn't really within our range there.
Yeah, so you're doing that stuff when you're building new anyways. That's easier to do, right? Because if you have like a turnkey building, then like doing windows, stuff like that. So on these, it makes it easier, I guess, because you're doing it from scratch.
Yeah, because the energy auditor will come to the building, see the existing conditions, and see what level is it at. Now, majority of the time, these gutted buildings are at the lowest level, so you can add in energy efficiency to reach that 100 level points.
Got it. So yeah, what Henry's essentially talking about is like part of the MLI Select program, you have to meet a criteria to get that sort of financing, right? So a lot of times they want to see that you have efficiency in the building through windows, I guess insulation.
Well, most of the time,
sort of stuff.
Yeah, most of the time we're hitting like the heat pumps, the mini split systems within every unit, right? We're getting rid of the boiler system, all the gas, and just adding everything electrical.
And it's easier to do that when you're doing full gut. So that's why with these developments where you're going either like tear down, rebuilding, or you're taking an existing structure and just fitting units within it, you're going to redo all the servicing anyways, right? Like you're going to do your gas, electrical, you're going to have to upgrade your servicing coming in. There's huge costs, but all that stuff, to Henry's point, like now you're hitting all these check marks to get very favorable financing at the end of the day where you could do like a 20 unit project, pull out all your capital, and you'll still be cash flowing too, even at today's rates. And the best part is on those financing programs, you're getting better rates than you are for smaller residential. Right? Like I think for the multi-unit buildings when you're getting CMHs and financial, you can get even as low as like 4.75 right now, whereas the residential rates are like at a 5.5 rate.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I guess like the next question would be like, when you're actively looking for these kind of deals, or your investors are looking for these deals, like what do you look for in the ideal deal? Like someone's like, hey, I want to do one of these projects. Like, what do you want to see that's like, this is amazing, like this is perfect?
So number one thing I look at is like location and like the type of building it is, right? So for this example right now, this is a corner building. We have a lot more potential here because we can add windows all across this wall without having any issues with the neighbors or adjacent properties, right? So number one thing, is it corner or is it interior lot? That's my first number one question. If it is corner or interior, depending on the risk factor there, then I go into the square footage. I do this whole calculation based on square footage to see how many 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms we can add there based on that whole formula, right? Obviously common areas, exits, stairways, all the other fun stuff there. And from there, I let them know, hey, you can do 15 units, right? Does that work within your numbers?
Yeah.
Or do you want to make it all 2 bedrooms or 1 bedrooms, whichever it is?
Yeah, and generally, in these deals, the more units you do, even though there's more costs, you just become more and more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
That's generally how it is.
Oh, 100%.
The income, I guess, is almost always offsetting based on valuation that you're going to get at the end of the day, any construction cost, right? So yeah, like, I mean, this is kind of the thing to focus on right now. Especially if you're looking to scale, I know a lot of investors are like trying to get out of the smaller deals right now. The numbers do cash flow on some, but in some cases you have to do just as much work as you have to do on these. These might take a little bit longer in some cases, but with the favorable financing, the city being open for business, just the overall numbers being better, your risk is more limited because there's more units there, right? If you have anything like in Ontario, like non-paying tenants, anything like that. So these are ideal. I wouldn't recommend it personally for someone just starting out, but like, especially if you have someone on your power team or you have people like myself, Henry, maybe you have contractors that are working on this stuff, like, you know, you can really get a solid project. And then what's the typical timeline for something?
Well, at least I can speak from my own personal experience. We're about, 6-8 months we're predicting for one of our commercial buildings, right? So it's typically around that timeline, depending on your power team, of course, right? A lot of contractors aren't really real estate investor focused. They don't understand that mindset, and we have to work with people who understand our need to get to that level, right? Somebody who's able to scale that fast, right?
So I guess with the right team, you can knock these out in like under 8 months even?
Give or take. It just depends on how much work there is, right? If it's all gutted, I would say 8 months, right? Okay. Maybe it could be a little bit sooner depending on what's inside, how soon you can get your permits. And again, we're talking about construction timeline.
That's not the permits.
That's not the permits. Permits is a little bit different because it's all over the place. Right?
Yeah, because you go into the commercial permitting, inspections are a little bit more strict, right?
It's a little bit more challenging at that point.
But I guess like that's the benefit of ideally finding something where you do have a gutted building, because then you can kind of...
Oh, 100%. Our preferred thing is to look for gutted buildings. There's no tenants there. It's all vacant. It's been just owned for so many years, right? It's there for us to kind of do whatever we need to do without involving any tenants.
All right. No, that's exactly like the sort of thing, like, I mean, people want as well, because right now with the tenancy laws, like, it's super tricky to get anyone out. Even on a dilapidated building, like, you're not going to be able to turn over the unit. You know what I mean? But yeah, like, to my point, these are the types of deals like you want to focus on right now, right? Like where you have kind of full control. There's so much creativity and control over the end product. You have enough room where you can't really lose. Obviously, they're a little bit more complex, but you can reach out to people like myself or Henry, and we have other contacts. Like, you know, I'm an agent. I work with a lot of investors. I know a lot of people, whether it's people like Henry doing the architecture, zoning side of things, or contractors, or just people for financing, because you're going to need all that when you're getting into this stuff, and you can definitely reach out to us. So where can people reach out to you, man?
Yeah, so the best way to reach out to me is through Instagram. You know, at Rojas Empire, it's the best way to kind of reach me at. DM me or give me a call. You know, it's just like I'm always there to help out you guys.
Okay. No, that's amazing. Yeah, and you can reach me at DonishRLT on IG and also on YouTube. And, you know, we'll probably be doing more videos like these, maybe some with actually active projects that are ongoing. But yeah, feel free to reach out.